My motto in life is kind of like, if I'm gonna have to work, I'm gonna make it worthwhile. Like I'm gonna try to enjoy my job. I'm gonna try to enjoy the company as much as I can. I'm going to try to enjoy the space that I'm working out of. Hey YouTube, I'm Jelana and this is the Tech Flex, and today we're going to talk about what it's like to work at a top tech company. So obviously some of the large tech companies would include Fang Mula, and if you watched my last video, you would know that that means Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, Uber, Lyft, and Airbnb. Smaller tech companies would include Stripe, Robinhood, Instacart, and other companies like that. Along with my personal experience, I've done a ton of research on this topic just so that I can provide a little bit of information and you can see if tech might be a good fit for you. My goal behind this video, and also kind of behind my channel, is to kind of provide a little bit of exposure as to what it's like working in tech. That way other minorities and other women are able to see, that this is also a field in an area that is for us as well. I hope that by the end of this video that you're encouraged and you're excited, and that maybe one day you might want to work at a tech company as well. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Y'all already know what time it is. It's time for a quick OOTD. The corset is from Misguided. These wide leg trousers are from Because of Alice. And the bag I'm wearing is Gucci. But anyway, girl, let's get back to the video.
So first, we're going to talk about culture and location. Tech companies typically have a greater emphasis on creativity as well as innovation. There's usually a lot of really cool projects going on at tech companies, which is definitely one of the main things that I really love. Personally, I like working for tech companies because I use technology a lot, and it's really cool working for a company whose product I actually use and care about. Like, I remember working for a company whose main product I honestly did not give two craps about, and it was just hard for me to be excited at work. The main reason why I want to be a software engineer is like innovation and technology are things that really interest me. So it only makes sense for me to work for a company whose technology I care about. You don't want to be like working for a company who sells windshield wipers or whatever. It's just like, well, this is kind of boring, okay? If you work for a windshield wiper company, I'm so sorry. But you get my point. It's like, it's hard to be excited for things when, you don't really care about that product. My motto in life is kind of like, if I'm gonna have to work, I'm gonna make it worthwhile. Like, I'm gonna try to enjoy my job. I'm gonna try to enjoy the company as much as I can. I'm going to try to enjoy the space that I'm working out of. Like, some people try to say like it's just work, or a job is a job, but to me it's like I'm spending 40 hours a week at this job. So personally, if I'm going to spend that much time, 8 hours a day, I want it to be something that I'm interested in and something that keeps me feeling fulfilled.
I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
I don't want to hear about windshield wipers for 40 hours a week. Moving on with culture, another thing about tech companies is that it's very laid back and very casual, and that's one thing that I also really love about working in tech. You see a lot of people on Zoom calls in hoodies and sweatshirts, or like, depending on the company, it can just be very, very chill. And that's just one thing that I like. The culture it's just more fun. That's one thing that I gather from tech companies, is that people love what they do. It's very laid back, and a lot of people just seem happier. The next part, along with culture, is working from home / remote. I feel like even prior to the pandemic, tech companies were already very flexible with working from home a couple days of the week at least. And now that the pandemic has hit, I've actually seen a mix. I think that in general, a lot of tech companies, especially with engineering, really believe that innovation is found in person and through those informal conversations that you have in the office. And I feel like as a result, a lot of companies are not as lenient to employees working remote as they claim that they are. Most companies that I've seen have just decided to do a hybrid approach where some employees are able to work remote, but not all. But once the pandemic is over, we will continue to do some days in the office and some days working from home. Companies like Spotify and Twitter have announced that they are fully allowing their employees to work remote if they want to, which I think is actually pretty cool to give the employees the option. But I also understand why some employers kind of want their employees to go into the office for the sake of innovation and learning and just feeding off of each other. As for me, I really love the office benefits, which I'm going to get into, but I also don't really like how most tech companies are in areas that I don't want to live in, as known as areas that are not as diverse or areas that are very expensive. Like, a lot of companies only allow you to really choose from like the Bay Area or New York, and it's like, and I also don't want to pay for the cost of living in San Francisco or New York. Studies show that during the pandemic, out of all the cities in the United States, more people left the Bay Area than any other city in the United States during the pandemic. So that kind of tells you something right there. More people are leaving, what makes you think people want to go there? Like, you know, it's just not making much sense. Like, it's just not making sense here. So the next category that we're going to talk about is benefits and perks. Tech companies definitely take the cake when it comes to perks and benefits. A lot of those big and small tech companies offer free breakfast and lunch, and some even offer dinner. Another cool benefit that I see a lot of companies have is unlimited PTO. Unlimited PTO is a perk that a few companies give that allow you to take off however much time you need, as long as it doesn't affect your performance. A few companies that I've heard of having this perk is Netflix, Twitter, LinkedIn has it as well, Grubhub, Asana, Twilio, and there's a few more as well. I think that this is a good benefit. Statistically, people do say that you take less days off when you have unlimited PTO, but I feel like this is where culture kind of comes into play. If you do your research and make sure that you are working at a company that values your well-being and encourages you to rest, I don't think that this will be as much as an issue. So definitely do your research if you do accept an offer with this perk. Another benefit that I hear a lot of companies have are free gyms. That's pretty cool. You can, attend yoga classes or Zumba classes or just kind of work out on your own. Some of them even go as far as having free trainers at the gym as well, which I think is pretty cool. Just by the first few benefits that I've named, you're already saving so much money at work. Just by going to work, you're saving money. Most companies will pay for your Wi-Fi and phone bill as well. In general, those companies typically have really nice offices as well that just kind of make going to the office worth going, I guess. Like, if I'm gonna go to the office, I wanna have something pretty to look at. One cool benefit that I have at LinkedIn that I really love is PerkUp, where they allow you to spend up to a certain amount per year on well-being. So you can do things like get yourself a massage or get yourself a trainer, buy gym equipment and things like that. And starting next year, we'll even be able to use our allowance for vacations and traveling as well, which I think is pretty cool. It's honestly really cool to work for a company that values your well-being, because I never spent that much time per year on treating myself to things until now. Now it's become a habit, and I just love that for me. Like, other benefits, it's pretty standard. You have your 401k. Most companies do match 50 cents to every dollar up into the federal maximum, which is about, I think, $19,500. Don't get me lying, but I know that it's somewhere around there. But there are some companies that match 100% up until the federal maximum, which is really nice. That's a lot of money, and your 401k will grow ridiculously fast that way. But first, if you don't know what 401k is, because I'm not going to assume that everyone does, 401k is basically your long-term savings that you usually can take out, I think, when you're at the age of 59 and a half, and most people use that for retirement. A lot of companies, both traditional and tech companies, allow you to put money into the 401k, and they match whatever you put in, whether that's 50% or 100%, or some companies might do less. But basically, if you put $100 in per check, they'll put in $50 or $100 per check. And then when you leave the company, that money kind of just stays where it's at, or you can transfer it to another bank and it'll kind of grow with compound interest every year because you are investing that money into the market. And then when you retire, you basically can live off of that money. Hope that makes sense. I hope I explained that well. If you want more information on things like 401ks, long-term to short-term savings, or just how I save money in general, let me know in the comments. But that's basically a standard benefit. I know I digressed a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that everyone understood what that was. I do understand that some people may have not even ever have had their first big girl, big boy job yet. So I want to make sure that everyone on this channel is educated on all things tech, all things financial wholeness, and everything. Okay, so guys, I promised that was it about 401k. The next benefit under perks and benefits is maternity leave. Most companies do offer maternity and paternity leave. Maternity and paternity leave. And paternity leave is for the male. So the dad can take some weeks off to, enjoy his newborn baby. But what's crazy is how much maternity leave a lot of these companies are giving. So I'm going to show you guys a graph from Vox, and it shows the amount of weeks of maternity leave given by tech companies, and I think that this graph is actually pretty cool. So Netflix is out here giving 52 weeks of maternity leave, y'all. I think that that's pretty cool, that they value moms that much that they're letting their mothers go enjoy motherhood for an entire year. That's honestly amazing. Other companies, it looks like that they're giving anywhere between 18 and 22 weeks, which is about 4 to 5 months. I think that that's a really generous amount of time as well. It looks like that when it comes to maternity leave, tech companies tend to be very generous. Okay, so the next point that I'm going to talk about is diversity. And I'm not gonna lie, this part is where tech companies are slacking very much so, especially when it comes to the Black population. They're not doing very well. So in 2020, according to the Los Angeles Times, Google only had 3.7% of its employees were Black.
Wait a damn minute. What?
Facebook had 3.8%, Microsoft had 4.5%, and Twitter had only 6%. Companies like Uber and Lyft had 9% and 9.3% respectively. But a lot of those positions were on low-paying operational teams. I honestly have a hard time understanding why companies have such a difficult time hiring Black people, because there are so many Black people that are qualified that would love to work for these companies. So I'm just not understanding where the disconnect is. I'm just not piecing it together. But on the bright side, I have seen a lot of companies start to expand to Atlanta. And with Atlanta being a predominantly Black city, I'm really hopeful that, eventually the numbers will start to rise, and hopefully they expand to other predominantly Black cities. So that is definitely a huge downside about working in tech. There are very few Black people and very few Latinos as well. They are facing the same exact issue. And unfortunately, when it comes to women, it's just as bad as well. Please take a look at this chart from Statista. This chart from Statista shows women's representation in big tech as of June 2021. As you can see, out of the entire United States workforce, 47% of the United States workforce are women. However, most of these companies only have a third of their population as women. That's another thing where it's just like, what are these companies doing to increase the number of minorities and women in tech? On the bright side, if you are someone in your 20s and 30s, this piece of information might be exciting to you. Tech companies typically skew a lot younger in age. I'm going to show you a graph by Business Insider. As you can see, the median employee age at a lot of these tech companies are in their high 20s or very low 30s. We have Facebook sitting around 28, LinkedIn at 29, Google at 30, Apple at 31, Amazon at 31, Microsoft at 33. So according to Elevate Network, the average age in the workforce is 42, but the average age in the tech industry is only 31. I personally think that it's really cool to work around a lot of younger people. It makes it easier to relate to your coworkers. It can be a good thing and a bad thing. I have read a lot of cons about, companies being essentially ran by younger people. But I will say that if you are in your 20s and 30s, you might find this a lot more comfortable. So the last part that I'm going to talk about is pay. At tech companies, the pay is structured a little bit differently than it is at traditional companies. Our pay typically includes a cash base, equity, and a bonus, which all add together to come up with your total annual compensation. If you're interested, I can have videos in the future that help you understand your pay at your tech companies and how they typically work. I do want to note that before you get into a tech company, you want to understand how you are being paid. Typically, you are given equity, and that is part of your pay. Treat it as such. That is part of your annual compensation. That is one huge difference between people who work at tech companies and people who work at traditional companies, is our pay is definitely structured very differently. At most tech companies, whether you are in tech or not, a lot of people do get equity. I've seen people, even in sales, get a large amount of equity at tech companies, which I think is really cool. If you are an engineer, this is typically the standard. Even if you are a new grad, you will probably have equity. Whereas traditional companies typically don't offer equity unless you are in a higher level, such as director or maybe senior manager at the lowest. But a lot of times, if you're entry level or even mid level, you probably won't be getting equity. So the great thing about getting equity at tech companies is that we are living in a time where tech companies are booming in the stock market. In general, a lot of these companies are trending upwards in the stock market. This also can be a downfall. Please make sure you are doing your research on the company that you are joining and making sure that if your offer is heavy in equity, that you are joining a company that you believe will be trending upwards. You do not want to join a company who the company is kind of going downhill and most of your pay is in equity, and it's just not a good idea. Along the lines of pay, tech companies also pay higher on average. I did a lot of research on levels.fyi and Glassdoor and came up with a couple of roles that we could compare. So first is technical recruiter. I chose technical recruiting as a good example role because it's a really good role to go into that is in tech and does not involve coding. And at Chase Bank, a technical recruiter makes anywhere between $70,000 to $80,000 a year. However, at Google, a technical recruiter makes on average $126,750 a year. The next role that we're going to look at is the role of a software engineer. At Chase Bank, software engineers make around $87,000 a year. At Google, software engineers make, on average for entry level, $192,000 a year. As you can see, the difference is huge. So when I was researching about what companies I wanted to work at and beginning my job search, I read a lot of blog posts, I watched a lot of vlogs, I looked at compensation websites such as levels.fyi a lot, and I just kind of saw that for the most part, tech companies, actually I'm not even going to say for the most part, almost every single time tech companies are paying way more than your traditional companies. And once I figured that out, I specified my job search to only apply for tech companies, period. So yeah, that was my last section, and I really hope that you found the things that I've talked about in this video very useful. Honestly, y'all, I just want more of my people in tech roles. I really want to provide as much exposure as possible. It would just be really nice to see more of us being represented at tech companies. You don't have to code to be in tech. Like I said, there are so many different roles. There's tech recruiter, there's tech sales. I will have a video in the future about roles that are in tech that do not require coding. But if you are interested in coding, I already have a video out, how to become a software engineer at a top tech company. Go watch that video right after this video. If you like what you heard in this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.